Market Cafe on ET Now with me, Shreyanti Singh and Kanishka Sarkar. And over the next 1 hour, we'll get you updates from within the country as well as across the globe. Also tell you which stocks you should be keeping on your radar as well. But speaking of stocks and Kanishka, let's get a quick check going on what the US markets are doing. And it's been a slide that we've seen thus in terms of the last week and this week as well. You did have Trump's tariffs rattling stocks on Wall Street. Tell us a little more.
Absolutely, Shanti. First of all, a very good morning. Speaking of stocks, well, Trump's tariffs related announcement continued to spook stocks on Wall Street for the third straight day. In fact, yesterday, US President Donald Trump threatened even higher rates against China if the Asian nation doesn't withdraw its 34% tariff. Yesterday, the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped about 350 points. That's nearly a percent. In fact, during the session, the Dow fell more than 1,700 points to the session low and then swung nearly 2,600 points from the low to high in a record reversal. The S&P 500, on the other hand, shed 0.23% after it briefly entered the bear market territory during the session, but was last off nearly 18% from its recent high. Now, the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite inched higher by 0.10%. as investors stepped in to buy some mega-cap tech stocks such as Nvidia and Palantir. As its low in the session, the tech-heavy index was down more than 5%. In fact, the stock seemed to have mounted a short-lived rally at one point that took the Dow Jones Industrial Average into the positive territory. This could have been on the back of speculation of a tariff pause that was circulating on social media. However, the White House has said that any talk of a 90-day pause was fake news and that major averages retreated once again. Now, if you compare the market's performance at the time of the pandemic to now, the S&P 500 has lost more than 10% in the last 3 sessions, which is its worst stretch since the outbreak of COVID in 2020. Now, despite the sell-off, the White House has remained defiant, reiterating that the set of shockingly high tariffs unveiled on Wednesday evening would take effect on April 9th as scheduled. Now, while China retaliated on Friday, other countries seem to be readying their own counter-tariffs. Now, other than stocks, US crude oil losses also seem to be deepening on recession fears, Shreyanti.
Absolutely, when you take a look at crude at this point, you do have a slight bit of rebound that we saw at least during the session. But when you take a look at prices overall, you did have prices falling about 2%. In terms of factors, you do have the same set of factors that we've seen thus far also making a comeback, and namely you do have global demand concerns that have been highlighted by this tariff tantrum at this point. You do have steep losses being added to at this point on the fears that President Donald Trump's global tariffs are going to be pushing the US and maybe the world into a recession. And that is definitely something that we're looking at in terms of US crude oil, 2% downtick. They're about $60 per barrel is the kind of level that you're looking at. When you take a look at Brent as well, about a $1 downtick or 2% downtick coming in for Brent as well, and below those $65 per barrel levels is where Brent was also at. And the latest price action, remind you, comes after US crude and Brent closed down more than 10% last week. So it's been quite the slide, and adding on to those steep losses was last session as well. And in terms of other factors, of course, you do have OPEC commentary coming in, and you did have the decision by key OPEC plus producers as well to increase the pace of production hikes. That's also something that we're looking at. In terms of patterns, as far as crude is concerned, you do have a very important pattern in terms of contango. That is something that we're seeing a little bit of at this point. It's a bearish pattern where the difference between the two spreads is getting narrower, and that is something that we're seeing at this point as well. So largely that's the kind of handover that we have. Let's see if a technical rebound is on the charts when it comes to crude as well.